The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Hey, welcome into the show for this weekend. Well, when it comes to open wheel racing, McLaren's going to dominate, and they're even going to get some NASCAR time in too. Say what? It'll become clear to you shortly. Otherwise, we got one IndyCar driver had his car in Indy. One car had his car chief ejected. We'll tell you why. We'll tell you the latest on SVG and his potential of leaving the Australian supercars to come run NASCAR. Driver is honoring dad with a paint scheme. Talk about that and show it to you if you're on CRN Live. IndyCar finally getting track testing done on the 2024 hybrid system. Got suspensions from NASCAR that are not actually related to on-track activity. We'll talk playoff scenarios for NASCAR, title chances for IndyCar, and tell you about those who are locked into the NHRA chase for the championship, and that is far from it. We drop the green on CRN after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
All the things you do to try to get your computer right so that you can get ready to go on the air. Good grief. Hey, good morning to you. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers, not picture.
Morning.
Welcome to you. Hope everything is going well on this weekend as we get back into the heat. Man, Wednesday and Thursday were nice, weren't they?
Yeah. Probably why I'm struggling this morning.
Yeah, I know. Here in Alabama, just to let you know, it has been, well, it's been like walking through hell. Until this week when we actually got what they called a cold front, which cooled things off, dropped things down into the mid-80s, low humidity. It was very nice for a couple of days.
Why don't they call it a cool front?
I know. Why wouldn't they just do it that way? Because, 86 isn't exactly what anybody would call cold.
Well, looking at it coming up this week, looks like hell's coming back to town.
Yep. Heat and humidity, 99 with the temperature, and then the humidity. Can't wait.
And that's 99% humidity.
Yeah. It's going to be good times. So let's talk about something that's a little more enjoyable. I don't know, like racing. Let's go back to the beginning of last weekend with the on-the-road. Everything happened on the road course at Indianapolis, it seemed like, except for the NHRA. Indycar Series got everything running. 2 amazing streaks got extended when Scott Dixon was able to answer the green flag and then claim the checkered. We'll detail those particular streaks in the series news. But yes, Scott Dixon did claim the win. He rallied, actually, from being spun into the grass early in the race, made a winning bonsai run. Dixon's car was fading a little bit at the end, but he had built up such a good lead over Graham Rahal, it really didn't matter at that point in time. Rahal had to settle for second, less than half a second behind. Pato O'Ward third, Christian Lundgaard fourth, and Alexander Rossi in fifth. Rest of your top 10, Will Power, Alex Palou, Scott McLaughlin, Kyle Kirkwood, Marcus Ericsson. It's really a 3-horse race for the title. Mathematically. Realistically.
1.
Yeah. But we'll dig into it a little bit more in the news. For right now, we'll just tell you right now, the best chances to hoist the 2023 title, Alex Palou. He's racked up 539 points. Scott Dixon moves from third into second in the points. He has 434. In other words, he's 100 plus back. After sweeping Iowa, Joseph Newgarden's gone cold. He now sits third with 434 points. I should have said Scott Dixon at 438. 101 back and 105 back, respectively, for Dixon and Newgarden. So, yeah, mathematically they got a chance. But realistically, they probably don't. Joseph Newgarden, who has been rock solid on ovals, has one more left this year. It's next weekend when they go to, is it Worldwide Tech?
Correct.
So we'll see if he gets to sweep the oval races on the year and, fan that flame of hope one more time. But it's going to take that, and let's face it, a lot more at Portland and WeatherTech Laguna Seca for him to actually claim this third title as opposed to Alex Palou getting 2 titles in 3 years. Right after IndyCar got done, Xfinity got on that road course, saw the Moonlighters battling it out for race dominance, which unfortunately I wasn't all that shocked by. Coming down to a battle between veteran road course racer A.J. Allmendinger and the young upstart Ty Gibbs. Most would probably have chosen Allmendinger as the winner, but, well, they'd be wrong. Allmendinger did everything he could. He got the pole. He led at stages 1 and 2, which I appreciate the fact that on road courses, NASCAR has decided not to make them stop at the end of the stage break. They just let them continue racing, but you get the bonus points anyway. But it wasn't quite what he was looking for. Gibbs got a restart with 16 laps left. Sam Mayer actually bested Allmendinger, passing the road course ace in the final lap, so he has to settle for third. Gibbs, your winner. Mayer, Allmendinger, then Austin Hill. We'll get back to him in a bit. Justin Allgaier, Cole Custer, Parker Kligerman, Sheldon Creed, Kaz Gralla, and Brett Moffitt fill out the top 10 there. No new series winners. John Hunter Nemechek continues to lead the way. 5 wins, 4 for Austin Hill, 2 for Cole Custer. Your single-time winners, Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, Chandler, then Sammy Smith, and Jeb Burton, all but locked into the playoffs. Again, we'll detail how clinching scenarios will come up later on in Xfinity Series news. Josh Berry leads those who are in on points. Then you got Daniel Hemrick, Riley Earpst, and Sheldon Creed. Creed's lead over Parker Kligerman continues to shrivel. It's now down to 17 points. You said last week you figured it probably was actually going to be Kligerman over Creed. Still going with that?
Yeah. I'm still going with that because Sheldon Creed's too inconsistent right now.
And seems to be cold.
Yeah.
That's the bad part for him. Cup Series kicking off at a limited slate of Sunday action. They were on the road course in Indianapolis. Win for the ages for Michael McDowell. McDowell had just signed an extension. We talked about it last week on the show. Just signed the extension with Front Row Motorsports the week leading up to the race. celebrated by grabbing his family and being able to kiss the bricks at the end. A lot of great traditions happen in racing.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Dale Jarrett for starting one that has stuck around and actually transferred not only from Cup to Xfinity, but also to IndyCar.
Everywhere. Yep.
Love it. It's
Everywhere.
good stuff.
Yep.
McDowell found himself leading the field on lap number 53, and despite some better-known road course racers behind him, McDowell just kept plugging away. Even as Chase Elliott was closing the gap in the final laps, McDowell got the win by less than a second. He's now got a win at 2 of NASCAR's crown jewel tracks. He got a Daytona 500 win, now holds a win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Can't beat that. McDowell, Elliott, first, second, Daniel Suarez, third. Daniel Suarez, it might have been an interesting situation because his team had a screw-up, really, on the final pit stop.
Oh, yeah.
When the front tire changer had the air hose caught under the tire, and when the jackman let it loose, well, guess what? Can't bring the jack around to do the other tire, so the jackman had to go back around, re-jack up that side of the car, get the hose out free, then come back around and do it. I'm not saying Daniel Suarez would have won, but Daniel Suarez was as dominant as A.J. Allmendinger was in the Xfinity Series race on Saturday and had a fast car.
Yeah.
It would have been a much more interesting race had Daniel Suarez not had that pit stop problem.
It would have been.
Would he have won? That's the question. We don't know. And we'll never know because, well, we're not going to go back and replay history. Following the top three, Tyler Reddick fourth, Alex Bowman fifth. Hey, a rare Alex Bowman sight here. Chase Briscoe in sixth, Martin Truex Jr. seventh, then Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. Shane Van Gisbergen finishes out the top 10. Van Gisbergen now has, in his 2 career races, an average finish of 5th. Who knew that would have hurt him in his average finish that much? From averaging a win every time you go out to averaging 5th.
Right.
It's still not shabby. William Byron's got 4 wins to lead the Cup Series standings. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch each hold 3. Got 2 wins for Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher. Christopher Bell leads those with a single win, a list that also includes Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, the newest addition to the list, Michael McDowell, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So 13 of the 16 playoff slots are filled with 2 more races to go. Kevin Harvick is all but locked into the playoffs. He sits 145 points over the cutoff. Brad Keselowski pretty comfortable, too, at 143 over the cutoff. Sitting in 16th is Bubba Wallace. He's a little less comfortable. He's 28 points over Daniel Suarez for that final playoff spot, with Ty Gibbs sitting 49 back. For a guy who won on Saturday, he did not do well on Sunday. We'll get into playoff clinching scenarios for the Xfinity and the Cup Series this weekend in the news section, so stick around for that. But there's one more event to talk about. Final event of last weekend was the final run, apparently, at Heartland Motorsports Park for the Camping World Drag Racing Series, considering that they can't figure out who's going to own the place or pay the taxes on it. Let's get to the racing side of it. We detailed that a couple of weeks ago, and I don't care to get back into it. Brittany Force made it to the finals in Top Fuel, facing off against Justin Ashley. Ashley just a little quicker off the light, and it was that tight throughout. The reaction time making pretty much all the difference. Ashley wins with a 3.702 ET, 323.58 miles per hour. Gives Ashley a 6th win of the year and number 11 of his career. How close was Force? A 3.707 ET. That close. That was a good race. Matt Hagan pairing off against Bob Tasca, the third in the funny car division. Hagan was actually much quicker off the light, 0.024 reaction time to a 0.055 for Tasca. But it was all Tasca after that. He was actually out front by the time they got past the Christmas tree. He pulls a 3.885 ET at 332.26 miles per hour. Win number 2 of the year, 14 for his career to date. And Pro Stock Car Finals. Came down to Greg Anderson taking on Erica Enders. Enders, the quicker reaction time, parlays that into the win. 6.617 ET, 206.13 miles per hour. Second win of 2023, 45th of her soon-to-be Hall of Fame career, whenever she finally decides to hang it up. As far as the points are concerned, Justin Ashley leads Top Fuel points by 83 over Steve Torrence. Brittany Force is next, 223 down. Antron Brown, 259 back, and Leah Pruitt, 275 out for your top 5. Matt Hagan, 61 points over Ron Capps and Funny Car, 174 over Robert Height. Chad Green, 185 back, and Bob Tasca's in 5th, 198 points behind. And Dallas Green leads Pro Stock Car by 228 over Matt Hartford. Troy Coughlin Jr., 234 and out. Then you got Derek Kramer, 256 back, and Eric Enders, 5th, 280 points from the lead. Yeah, Pro Stock Motorcycle did not race, so no change in the points there. Your final race of the third season of the Superstar Racing Experience wraps up our recap. It was Thursday evening, Lucas Oil Speedway in Missouri. Tony Stewart really the only one who could really challenge Ryan Newman for the title, but Newman had such a big lead going in that he might have been able to pick up the championship title depending on how he finished in the heat races, and that's exactly what he did. That big points lead going in allowed him to, with a top 5 finish in heat race number 1, lock down the title. From there, it was just another question. Was the newcomer to the series going to be able to become the latest driver to win in his SRX debut? Talking about Jonathan Davenport. The dirt track ace could, and he did. He bested Brad Keselowski and then Ken I'll Drive Anything Anywhere Schrader, who finished 2nd and 3rd. Rest of the field filled out with Ryan Newman 4th, Clint Boyer, Marco Andretti, Tony Stewart. That'll come into play. Kenny Wallace, Elio Castroneves, Haley Deegan, Ernie Francis Jr., Bobby Labonte was last on the field. The results bringing about the final standings. Ryan Newman sitting with the title at 212. Marco Andretti and Brad Keselowski both able to pass Tony Stewart in points, tied at 167 with Andretti holding the tiebreaker. Tony Stewart finishes year number 3 in 4th, 164 points. Ken Schrader at 150, 145 for Bobby Labonte, Haley Deegan trailing all the full-time racers with 140 points. So here's your fairly limited race schedule for this weekend. I say fairly limited. I'm going to give you exactly 3 events. It starts later today as we air live. Xfinity Series getting the racing started with the Shriners Children 200 at Watkins Glen International, where in NASCAR form, it is an 11-turn, 2.45-mile-long course. They don't race the boot when NASCAR goes there. The race will air on USA and MRN Radio, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Cup Series will be up next. Tomorrow, they're going to run the Go Bowling at the Glen. That's at Watkins Glen International, same course as Xfinity, airing on USA and MRN Radio, beginning 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Something about NBC Sports not wanting to go head-to-head with NASCAR against anybody else. I'm not getting it. The reason I say that is because the final event of the short weekend schedule, NHRA's Camping World Drag Racing Series, is contesting the Lucas Oil NHRA Nationals at Brainerd Raceway. I'll get that working in a minute. Brainerd Raceway in Minnesota. Finals will air on Fox, the main network, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. IndyCar and Formula One are off, and of course Formula E and now the Superstar Racing Experience are done. So yeah, not a big weekend of racing. 3 events, all of them very, very easily watched because USA, even though it is cable, it's available to everybody.
Yep, it is.
Watkins Glen. Expecting surprises here?
Nope. I don't expect a surprise.
Okay. What do you think? And I realize that we're kind of looking ahead here and predicting, and it's not something that we generally do, but when it comes to road courses, we get these road course aces that come in from time to time. We got, for example, Mike Rockenfeller, who's running this weekend again for Legacy MC. We'll get back to that. No road course ace grabbing a win. I mean, these drivers are getting so much better. The regular drivers are now so much better at running road courses than we have. Than when I first got into NASCAR, road courses, we'd go to Riverside. We might go to Watkins Glen. You remember Riverside, kids? But yeah, they would kind of complain about it because it was such a different aspect to everything. And then all of a sudden, a couple of drivers like Jeff Gordon came in. He dominated. Tony Stewart said, you know what, I can do that too. And he went and he learned a little bit more about it. And he started winning races. And everyone said, oh, wait a minute. We can actually not just look at those as a punt and let's get past this. We could actually become pretty good and not go out of there looking like we just fumbled the football.
Personally, I don't see any surprises. The only thing you may could consider a surprise is I could see the 34 going back to back. I could see that. I'm
not certain that'd be that big of a surprise anymore.
Right now, it wouldn't be a surprise.
I mean, as good as Michael McDowell has been over the last couple of years and as good as Front Row Motorsports has become, I'm not sure that's as big an upset as we used to think that it was.
No. I would agree with that.
So, going to be interesting to watch. We'll find out. And, of course, if you don't get the chance to check it out on television or in replay, we'll be here for you next week to let you know all about it. That's what we do. That's why we're here every single week. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back here, we're going to jump into some news here. We're going to start off with the Cup Series because, William Byron might be leading the points, but wasn't the greatest of weekends last weekend for him. Kyle Larson, on the other hand, had a fantastic weekend, not only on the track, but with some things that were going on around the track as well. Plus, there's so much more that we got to get to. Hey, we just got started. Thank you for checking us out. Keep with us right here on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Championship Racing Network.
Indeed. Welcome back in. I'm Steve West along with Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers, and let's get into some Cup Series news here where of all teams that I would have thought might fail pre-race inspection, not just once but 3 times, Hendrick Motorsports was not really at the top of my list.
Nope.
But yet William Byron, who may be leading the Cup Series standings with his 4 wins, probably just very happy to put Indianapolis in his rearview mirror. Had to start at the back of the field on Sunday when his car, that well-known Hendrick Motorsports number 24, failed that pre-race inspection, as noted, 3 different times. What exactly was wrong with that car, by the way?
Something for
I'll say it was a fender, wasn't it?
something with the body was out of tolerance.
Oops. Caused NASCAR to keep the 24 from even participating in the qualifying session on Saturday. And sometimes that's a big deal. Sometimes it's not. A road course. The biggest problem is that it doesn't allow the team to select their pit stall. The car chief was also immediately ejected for the weekend after the 3-time failure. And the final penalty from the weekend because of failing 3 times, NASCAR forced the 24 not only to start from the back of the field, but after the green flag had dropped and run a full lap, they had to do a pass through the pits penalty. Yeesh. Got to give credit to Byron and his crew. Worked out a strategy that allowed him to recover and finish 14th. If he didn't have to start at the back of the field and didn't have to perform a pass-through penalty, that car, depending. I mean, again, a lot of it was a strategy that they worked up because, hey, now we know that we're kind of behind the 8 ball here. But that makes me seem like the car might have been good enough to contend for a win had they not and suffered the penalties.
Yeah, I mean, it was penalties will take anybody out of a game.
Absolutely. They say you can't win the race on the first lap, but you can lose it.
You can lose it on the first lap.
William Byron pretty much locks that down for you. Byron's teammate Kyle Larson, on the other hand, was celebrating. Not because he won. He didn't. Michael McDowell did. But the cars for his first attempt at the double were unveiled over the weekend. HendrickCars.com, which has been Larson's main primary sponsor with Hendrick Motorsports, will be his primary sponsor for both his IndyCar and Cup Series ride next May when he does the Indy 500 for Arrow McLaren and the Coca-Cola 600 in his regular ride, the 5 of Hendrick Motorsports. You'll be able to see the cars momentarily on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Racing News. This is a heck of a lot more of a cooperative effort than some of the prior attempts that we've heard of. I mean, we would see, I remember the 2 times that Tony Stewart did it, we saw, for example, him running an orange car with a Home Depot sticker, which was his Cup Series sponsor.
Right.
But how much did Joe Gibbs actually have to do with the IndyCar ride that Tony Stewart was in? Little to nothing, truth be told.
Very little. Very little.
When Robbie Gordon was doing it, how much input did his Cup Series team owner have to do with what was going on with his IndyCar ride?
Very little.
John Andretti?
Very little.
Okay. This is much more of that cooperative effort than I think that we've ever seen before. What you got is the Hendrick colors adorning the IndyCar ride. You do have that splash, or actually stripe, right across the top if you're looking on CRN Live on YouTube, of that signature McLaren papaya orange. You can also see it adorning bits and pieces there on the Cup Series ride that he will run in the Coca-Cola 600.
Actually, the orange on the Cup car looks really good.
It really does.
Very good. I was going to say
really
that
good.
both those cars look awesome.
They really do. They did a very, very nice job on both of those. This is Larson trying to be the first driver to attempt the double since Kurt Busch did it back in 2014. And remember, Kurt Busch finished in the top 10. I think he finished 6th in that Indy 500 and claimed the 2014 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. The other thing that Kyle Larson's trying to do is he's trying to match what Tony Stewart did. Tony Stewart is the only driver so far who has run the double to run all 1,100 miles. We'll see. If there's somebody that can do it, not that Kurt Busch wasn't capable of it, I think Kyle Larson has a really, really good chance at it.
Oh, very, very.
Let's see. This weekend at Watkins Glen, let's go ahead and kind of run down playoff scenarios a little bit here. Things are a little bit clearer for 2 drivers. We talked about Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski. Both of them can clinch the playoff spots as long as they come out of the race at least 56 points over the 16th place driver in the standings, which is right now listed as Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace would have to claim both stage wins and grab the win, and Harvick and Keselowski would have to finish basically last and second to last on the field for this not to happen.
Right.
So they're all but in, but officially they haven't clinched. Other aspects of it, if either Harvick or Keselowski wins later on this weekend, the other would also automatically be in the playoffs regardless of finish, because that would lock down another spot and point that other driver in. I know it starts to get confusing at that point in time. If Wallace or another driver were to claim the checkered flag, only Harvick can actually clinch by the aforementioned 56 points above the driver sitting 16th in points. Again, we could get into the point of being really, really off into the weeds. I'm not going to get into that. I'll let TV confuse the living daylights out of you, or MRN radio, depending on how it is that you're ingesting the race tomorrow. Martin Truex Jr., despite not having the most wins on the year, actually does come into the weekend leading the points battle. He could clinch the regular season title by claiming 56 points this weekend. Regardless of the Daytona results, he would go into the playoffs as the 1 seed. So that's exactly what producer John is hoping for. Trackhouse Racing. Let's get back into the whole SVG or Shane Van Gisbergen talk here. Trackhouse Racing is still considered the team is going to sign New Zealand driver SVG. Nothing is signed yet, according to the driver from last weekend. After winning in his Cup Series debut at Chicago, backed it up by racing 10th, racing in the top 10 almost all day at Indianapolis, and finished with a top 10 finish, finished in 10th. When he was asked afterward about his status for 2024, he seemed optimistic. At the time, he said, quote, "We're closer, but I haven't closed anything out. I really have to sort out Australia first. That's looking promising, and then coming up with something here, and then hopefully move over soon." Well, on Wednesday, things cleared up even a little bit more for SVG. His Australian Supercars team, 888 Racing, announced they have officially released him from his contract after this year. They've already signed his replacement driver as well for 2024. That guy's name is Will Brown. SVG will remain with 888 through the end of the remainder of this year. Brown will remain with his team, which is Erebus Racing, through the end of this year as well. And then SVG is free to come to NASCAR. And Brown slides over and takes over the 888 racing car that SVG will be vacating. He's a contender for the 2023 title in Australian Supercars. If he does win it, that'll mark his 4th title in that series. So it wouldn't be a bad way to close out his career down under.
Right.
Trackhouse Racing has already pretty much said probably not going to be a full-time Cup car. We're going to sign him.
It's going to be a joint deal.
Yeah, we'll sign him. We'll run select Cup Series races, and we'll probably give him some time in trucks and or Xfinity. Maybe he might get a ride in somebody else's car.
I could see it being a deal between Nice, Kaulig, and Trackhouse.
Okay.
Being split in time between all 3 series, getting experience and more experience, word it that way. More experience in some series, additional experience in the other 2 series.
And mainly experience on ovals, which is what he did. We talked about it a little bit last weekend show because the Truck Series ran Indianapolis Raceway Park on Friday night. He finished 19th there, which, all things being equal, a respectable finish for a guy first time in that series on an oval, and one of the very few times he's ever raced an oval, if not the first.
He's ran some dirt ovals in Australia, but asphalt ovals, I think that's his very first one.
Okay, so yeah, more than a respectable finish to get a top 20 in your first time behind the wheel of a truck and on an asphalt oval. Not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. But I would fully expect him in 24 to be in an ARCA car at minimum at Daytona.
Okay. And then more than a handful of trucks and Xfinity starts?
Oh, absolutely.
How many starts do we think he can get? I mean, they're not going to put him in officially for Rookie of the Year.
I don't think he's going to run for rookie status.
No, not next year.
But if he runs more than, I would say if he exceeds 10 starts in one series to the other, he'll have to declare for rookie in something.
Yeah, I think he would.
One of the similar Ty Gibbs scenarios.
Sure.
It was a couple years ago when he ran Xfinity cars while he was running ARCA and ended up winning the Xfinity Rookie of the Year because he won a handful of races.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be one of those similar scenarios.
So I've kind of got it in my head. He's probably going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 Cup Series starts next year.
I would say he has at least 10.
Okay.
At least.
All right. We'll find out. No idea yet. Still got to ink him to a contract.
But like I said, I fully expect him at worst at Daytona, depending how they set the schedule for next year and how they run speed weeks, however you want to say it. However they structure it out, I would say at worst, you see him in an ARCA car to get super speedway experience.
And really, all he's got to do is get the ARCA start, and at that point in time, NASCAR would clear him.
You're going to all but clear him.
So at that point in time, I'll ask this question. I'll put you in I'll put you in Justin Marks' seat as the owner of Trackhouse Racing.
I would love to be in that seat.
I understand. So I'm going to put you there for a moment. If you are Justin Marks and you are able to cut the deal, which I don't think is a problem at all, to get him in an ARCA car at Daytona, that's the first race. Do you then work with Nice, try to get him in the season-opening Truck Series race, then work with Cowlig to get him in the season-opening Xfinity Series race, and then also try and get him to qualify for the Daytona 500 and get him as much experience in that particular set as you could?
Back to my how they structure the schedule statement. Because past couple of years, they ran truck race on Friday, ARCA race on Saturday. Now to my pivot point. The ARCA open test that is in January, that could, and I stress could, be used as a clearing ground.
We've seen it before.
It has happened before.
And with his resume, I think that NASCAR would be more willing to clear him based on a test as opposed to a greenhorn rookie like, say, myself.
Yeah.
You know, they're not going to look at me and go, well, you don't have a resume. Yeah, you can do the test, but we're not going to clear you to run a truck. On the other hand, this guy's got 4 titles in Australia driving supercars, which if you look at those cars, they're not radically different from what a cup car is now.
Right.
And he's got 2 starts in the Cup Series already, granted on a street course and a road course, but still he's got those 2 starts already.
The 2 starts are under the belt, yes, but if you follow proper protocol like should be followed,
sure,
as it has been in the past, but we've deviated from that some. Start him, let him get the ARCA start on super speedway to learn how pack racing goes, and then send him on his way.
Okay, we'll see. I'd probably, if I were in Justin Marks' position, yeah, I'd certainly put him in the ARCA race, and then I would try and get him in as much as I possibly could, again, depending on exactly how the schedule breaks down. Legacy MC, meanwhile, needs fill-in drivers. He's got a driver's seat.
Yep.
Just saying. They need fill-in drivers after having parted ways with Noah Gragson due to a tweet or an X or whatever the heck you want to call that thing now.
Like button.
What?
A like button.
A lot. Yeah. Due to a like button. That's pretty much it. This weekend will be the second weekend in a row. We talked about it for Mike Rockenfeller. And then they go to Daytona. That's when the team will turn to Josh Berry. Berry drove the 42 in Michigan when Gragson had to sit out because of a concussion. It'll be Berry's first Cup start at Daytona. Cup start at Daytona, mind you. At this time past Daytona, it's not really known who's going to drive the 42 car. The team that is actually, though, most appreciative of this is not Legacy MC. It's Stewart-Haas Racing, because Josh Berry is going to take over the 4-car full-time next year as Kevin Harvick steps out, retires, moves up to the Fox broadcast booth. All this is doing is giving Josh Berry that much more time and that much more comfort in a Cup car.
The way I look at it is Ford and Stewart-Haas needs to be sending Chevrolet a thank you card or a thank you fruit basket at the end of the year for getting him more starts.
Yeah.
Because all that's going to do is make him better.
Because, I mean, he's gotten what? 10 plus, is it 10 plus starts at Hendrick Motorsports filling in for William Byron and Chase Elliott? Or right around 10 starts?
Between Bowman and Elliott, yeah.
Bowman and Elliott, sorry.
Yeah. He's got 4, because he didn't run COTA. Jordan Taylor run COTA. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think this is probably his 9th, maybe 10th start of the year.
At this point in time, Stewart-Haas is probably looking at it and going, keep Josh Berry in for the playoff run. It's not going to hurt you. They're not in the playoffs. And, hey, it just gets him more experience, and we're happy. That's what I'm thinking anyway. We'll find out. While he looks up the stats, we'll talk congratulations to Brad Keselowski and his wife, Paige. They announced on social media Wednesday they're expecting child number 3. They did announce it will be a boy. The son will join their 2 daughters, Scarlett, born in 2015, and Autumn, born in 2019. They did not announce a due date, though. She's showing, according to the picture, but I'm no doctor, and I don't play one on the radio, nor on CRN Live on YouTube, so I couldn't even begin to tell you how far along she is.
They're close.
Are they that close? Okay. NASCAR and Netflix reportedly working on a deal that would have them documenting the Cup Series playoffs and a run to the 2023 title. Drivers and teams have been told by NASCAR of the impending plans, but the terms haven't been finalized and nothing signed as of this show's live airing August 19th. However, it would be similar to the 2022 race for the championship series that they aired last year on USA. Let's face it, everyone's looking at NASCAR or Formula One's Drive to Survive and going, how can we do something like that?
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Yes, we are. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers. Just got done with Cup Series news. I want to go back to that real quick, though, because we were trying to figure out exactly how many races Josh Berry has run so far in the Cup Series, considering he will next week step into the 42 car for the second time. He ran for Noah Gragson at Michigan because Gragson had to sit that race out due to a concussion. But he ran earlier this year when a couple of Hendrick Motorsports drivers were done. Next week at Daytona will be start number 10. There you go.
Number 10.
Gotcha. Let's see. Let's turn to the Xfinity Series here where we talk about playoff clinching scenarios. We talked about it in the Cup Series. I didn't want to get too far off into the weeds, and, man, we could get into stupidly ridiculous detail when it comes to clinching scenarios in the Xfinity Series. I'm going to go by the old radio axiom of KISS, or keep it simple, stupid. So I'll keep it as simple as I possibly can,
Keep it simple, Steve.
basically. If any of the drivers that have 2 or more wins gets another win today, every single driver that has a single win is locked in. Got that?
Yeah, simple enough.
Should any of the drivers that are currently in on points but without a win jump up and claim the win, Sam Mayer and Chandler Smith could lock in their playoff position, but they would need some points help as well. I'm not going into those weeds. There are many other clinching scenarios that are specific to one driver needing this particular driver to finish, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to get to that point. It's just not going to work.
No.
We'll detail who's in and who's out next week. CHK Racing is a team that might be relatively unfamiliar to you because technically it's their first year. This is the former Mike Harmon Racing team that combined with other operations, and they're still running the number 74. They're trying to get the number 74 Camaro into today's race as we are live at Watkins Glen. And the driver is going to be, well, somebody you might not have never heard of. His name is Casey Carden. Carden said of this chance, quote, "I'm very thankful Mike Harmon has given me the opportunity to try to qualify at Watkins Glen and that Real Racing has come on board to support me for this race. I'm hoping my road course background and ARCA experience will help me make the show as I try to live the dream." You're going to see a picture of Casey here on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of ARCA Racing here in a moment. If you've never heard of him, well, I understand that. He's been kind of under the radar, shall we say. He's a 34-year-old native of Brazelton, Georgia, began karting, worked his way up into sports car racing, running SCCA as well, before joining the Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series about a decade ago. And then he started his own team and raced in the American Endurance Racing Series, winning 17 races between 2017 and 2019, and then turned his attention to ARCA. There he is right there. That's the guy that we're talking about if you're looking on CRN Live on YouTube. Again, that picture courtesy of ARCA Racing. Casey Carden. Just a guy who is
Never
like
heard of him.
way out of left field
Yep.
for this
never heard of
particular pick. But again, road course racing experience. We've talked about that. That will tend to get you some attention. And if you can go out and you can win 17 races in 3 seasons, regardless of what series you're in,
Yeah.
you're going to raise some eyebrows when NASCAR goes road course racing.
Sure.
And that's what happened for him.
No doubt about that.
Will this lead to a full-time ride? I can't say that. He's relatively new to stock cars, joined the ARCA Menard Series, running for Club Racing and Rise Motorsports in 2022 on a part-time deal. He's run a grand total of 6 races in that part-time role. Does have 3 top 20 finishes in that time, 2 of them earlier this year with Club Racing, the team that began the year with. It looks like he will finish out the year with Rise Motorsports, driving their 31 in some select races. So we'll see whether or not he has the chops to run stock cars. We've talked about the possibility of the expansion of, say, for example, Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing from its current 2 to 3 or more teams. At one time, Richard Childress Racing was in that same situation. They had more than 2 full-time cars in the Cup Series. It appears that they're working towards that as well, a future expansion. You say future. Why future? Well, remember, we're talking Xfinity. And Richard Childress Racing has signed Austin Hill to a contract extension. According to all reports, it's a multi-year deal that has, at least for now, him sticking with not only RCR, but to continue to drive in the Xfinity Series full-time, at least for 2024. As we noted during the recap, Austin Hill's got 4 wins this year. He's the 2 seed right now for the upcoming playoffs going into the weekend. Joined RCR just last year. So far, he's got 6 wins, 24 top 5, 38 top 10 finishes in that 21 car. This, to me, looks like Richard Childress is seeing what Kyle Busch has done by coming over and kind of revitalizing the team that had been, it had been floundering for several years up until then. And he's looking at it and going, I can keep Austin Hill, and I can work on getting that sponsorship to get that 3rd car, and I can bring Austin Hill up, and I can have 3 very viable, 2.5, very viable full-time Cup cars.
2 1/4.
Depending on how you want to look at Austin Dillon.
This one took me by surprise a little bit because I personally had him pegged going to the 31. I had them pegged going to that because of their alliance that they've got with RCR.
Yeah.
And how they work with RCR.
Right.
But he's either been promised a third Cup car in 25.
Or somebody's on a hot seat.
Yeah. And we know one car that ain't.
It ain't Kyle.
It ain't Kyle, yeah.
I mean, is Richard Childress willing to fire his grandson?
Or him just voluntarily step out.
Maybe. I don't know. There's a part of me that tends to think, though, I mean, Austin Dillon, we rag on him a lot. And really for good reason. But Austin Dillon's got a respectable, if not superb, resume. I mean, Daytona 500 win where, he basically ran through the 10 car to get it. I get that. But
he got
still.
Four Cup Series wins.
It's respectable. And he certainly has no lack of sponsorship, at least at this point in time. So, I'd be a little surprised if this wasn't them working towards building up a third car.
Yeah.
Like, the problem is the same situation that we were talking about when it comes to Trackhouse racing. We talked about what Trackhouse said last week. The problem right now is availability of charters. If you can find one, which right now Trackhouse hasn't been able to find one, they're ridiculously expensive. So we'll see how it works out. But my way of looking at this is keeping Austin Hill happy until you can get him in a Richard Childress Racing Cup Series car, however that happens.
Yeah.
To the Craftsman Truck Series, where Hattori Racing Enterprises announced that they're going to put their second truck, the number 61, on the track next weekend at the Milwaukee Mile. Behind the wheel is going to be, a kid you probably never heard of, a 16-year-old by the name of Sean Hignorani. He's a full-time driver in the ARCA West Series this season. He'll make his top-level NASCAR debut with this ride. He's been driving for Venturini Motorsports and select ARCA and ARCA East races as well. He's a native of Newport Beach, California, but his family traces their roots to India not that long ago. This year, he's got 3 wins, 10 top 5, and a dozen top 10 finishes in 22 races across the 3 ARCA divisions, and has claimed 3 poles. He'll bring his sponsorship, as you will see that truck right there on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Hattori Racing Enterprises. He'll be sponsored by Fidelity Capital. He's coming back from a 1-week suspension earlier this year because of his on-track actions at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
Seen it.
Because of that, he's also on probation through the end of the year. It appears that he and one of his teammates were battling for the lead, and things went sideways. I'll let you detail it from there.
Yeah, he basically wrecked his teammate out of the lead.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
According to what the ARCA Series officials said.
And his teammate was none other than Dean Thompson that race.
Yeah. And then apparently he also pulled a modified Cole Trickle.
A little bit.
Ended up somehow in a sand trap? Or he was off the track for a little while.
Yeah, it was in turn 13 in the carousel.
So he's sitting there waiting, and here comes Dean Thompson back around, and Hignorani, despite the fact that he was warned, pulled out and intentionally wrecked Thompson. Again. Welcome to suspension.
You can't fix stupid.
But apparently it gets you a truck series ride.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, it's a good-looking truck. We'll see whether this kid's got the chops. We'll see whether this kid can keep his temper under control.
Toyota.
Because if anything we know
Toyota
about the truck series, they beat and bang a lot.
Toyota. Da-da-da. That's who got that ride, Toyota.
Yeah, I would say you're probably right. It's an interesting way of listening, of bringing this up, because we're getting close to college football season here, and if you live in the South, you know this. College football rules in the southeastern part of the United States of America. If you happen to be a person who listens to the radio broadcasts for Alabama Crimson Tide football or basketball, you might have noted during the 2022-2023 season that NASCAR had a presence via a deal that NASCAR had cut with Learfield Communications, which is the spearhead of the Alabama Crimson Tide radio network. Well, that deal's set to continue in 2023. Well, actually, it's not only going to continue, it's going to expand. Because not only will it include the Alabama Crimson Tide basketball and football, it will include the South Carolina Gamecocks football and men's basketball radio broadcasts. But wait, there's more. NASCAR and Learfield have actually signed a 2-year deal, which allows NASCAR access to several things that were not available in the first deal. This includes in-venue presence, social and digital media access, and sharing of data from Learfield, NASCAR, Alabama, and South Carolina. In addition to football and men's basketball, the Alabama side will include baseball and softball, while with South Carolina, NASCAR will have a presence in football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball. You can expect radio spots to air during Crimson Tide football, basketball, baseball, and softball broadcasts and all named South Carolina sportscasts. NASCAR will also have a full-page ad in South Carolina programs for men's and women's basketball games and baseball games. You'll also have on-site displays in the fan zones at Alabama and South Carolina. And if you go to Bryant-Denny Stadium and you go and you check out one of the big screens and they do the drive summary for any Alabama score, football or a field goal or touchdown, NASCAR will sponsor the drive summary. This is really in-depth. NASCAR will also have the title sponsorship of the weekly social media show entitled Crimson Drive. Now we know why it's being called that. And digital participation across the Fan 365 platform from Learfield themselves. All of this really is to help cross-promote NASCAR to both Alabama and South Carolina fans, specifically to highlight ticket sales to the races at Talladega and Darlington, respectively, but they'll also include other big races, big ticket races, things like the Busch Light Clash, Daytona 500, Coca-Cola 600, the high-profile events. As long as Alabama does not schedule a home game on the same weekend that Talladega's at. I mean, I think at this point in time, we're getting to the point where we can actually do both of those, and we can have 100,000 people in the stands at Bryant-Denny and 100,000 people in the grandstands and another, almost 100,000 people in the campgrounds. I think there's enough interest to be able to do that, but at the same time, it does seem like you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah. September the 30th, that weekend of Talladega, they are at Starkville, Mississippi.
Okay. Which is not a very long trip for the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's 80 miles?
Roughly, give or take, but
at least they're not a home game.
But down on the friendly confines of the plains, Sheridan Harris Stadium.
Auburn's at home?
At home against the University of Georgia.
Oof. Well, that's what we would call a high-profile game, boys and girls.
I fully expect that to be the CBS 2:30 kickoff.
I would imagine it will be, yes. From the good side of things for NASCAR in cross-promoting with college football and basketball and baseball and softball, NASCAR announced they've suspended 3 people effective immediately. And none of the suspensions have anything to do with what they did on the track.
2 of them, blatant stupidity. 1 of them makes you go, what the heck?
Yeah. The blatant stupidity part, the first 2, they are part-time drivers. They are Chris Hacker and Jason White. They were both arrested for DUI in Huntersville, North Carolina. On 2 separate occasions, no less. White, who's 44, was arrested August the 3rd. The 23-year-old Hacker, who has 16 starts in Truck and Xfinity Series, was arrested this past Tuesday.
Here's the kicker on this one with Hacker. Y'all know who he's sponsored by? Morgan and Morgan Law Firm.
Guess who needs a lawyer? It's a good thing that they're a nationwide law firm. Also suspended. This is the smack your head kind of a situation here.
Yeah, this is the what the heck.
Joel Courage. Joel Courage is 44 years old. He was picked up by the Guilford County, North Carolina authorities for failing to register as a sex offender. What's Courage's relationship to NASCAR? Well, he was, I use that term very, very pointedly, in charge of E33 Motorsports and Development in Mooresville, North Carolina. It's a group that touts itself as a company that finds and develops young racers. Courage, the authorities noted, was convicted in 2008 in California on no less than 14 sex offense charges and must register wherever he moves to for the rest of his natural-born days.
14.
And he didn't. So he got arrested and now can't do anything with NASCAR.
14.
Road to Recovery program will cover Chris Hacker and Jason White should they choose to go through it. I'm not so certain that there is a Road to Recovery aspect for Joel Courage.
Double duh.
Here's the CRN Road to Recovery program for Mr. Courage. It's called a jack handle to the side of the head.
Pretty much. Something went real wrong in the wiring upstairs, boys.
Grief.
That's simple, dude.
Good grief.
That's a simple thing. And I know it's the equivalent of a scarlet letter on your chest. Okay? But you were found with whatever you were found with or however it was found, and you were convicted on it. All you had to do to not have this come out in public was to register when you moved to North Carolina. That's it.
Yeah.
Let's give you some better news here. This is actually pretty cool. I checked out the website a little bit yesterday. I haven't gone into full detail on it, but I'm looking forward to doing this. NASCAR's introduced a free, and thank God, website that fans can go to where you can check out over 1,000 full race replays. It's a website that they've called NASCAR Classics. The website's currently up and running. Its ad-free viewing allows for edited broadcasts and recaps. And then there's NASCAR's 75 top greatest races as the headline attraction. With NASCAR officials, we're in charge of choosing which of those 75 races made up that particular list. You can see kind of the promotional material for it up on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of NASCAR.com. The earliest race in the collection goes back to August of 1951 when they raced in Michigan. While last fall's race, the Hail Melon, is the most recent to this point. Users of the site can seek races by year or by track. You could also, once you get the video started, search for a specific moment that you might remember within the race or you might have heard about. And NASCAR promises soon that they're going to begin to upload every recently run Cup Series race and do it within weeks of the conclusion of said race. If you'd like to go check out the site yourself, you can. Go to classics.nascar.com. Again, thanks to NASCAR.com for the announcement picture that you can see right now on CRN Live on YouTube. Again, classics.nascar.com.
I have the list of the 75 greatest races in history right here.
You may or may not agree with it.
It's questionable. Very questionable.
But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of good races.
The first...
I'll tell you what. Well, John's working on something over there. Let's go to break here, John. And when we come back, we'll kind of dive into this a little bit more because I think looking at Matt's going to take a little bit closer look at it. And we'll have some commentary on this. Again, I took a real close look at it. I didn't dive into any detail on it when I heard about this. I haven't yet watched a race, but I plan on doing that as well. Probably be able to figure out a way to put it up on the big screen. Might be fun. We'll talk about it when we come back. Hour 1's in the books. Hour 2 coming up next, right here on the Championship Racing Network. Thank you for joining us. Stick with us for Hour 2.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers. Hour number 2 underway here. Got an interesting question from one of our viewers on YouTube. We're going to get to that here in a minute. You've been looking at that NASCAR Classics website there where, again, you go to the homepage and it's got what select NASCAR people call the top 75 races of all time. We work. We've all said this. We work at the track just down the road, Talladega, Alabama.
Yeah.
There's a lot of exciting races that have happened at Talladega.
I see this right here. They've got it. They put it. The years. It's in chronological order from 51 all the way down.
Probably the Hail Mary.
To 22.
Yeah. Which is probably the Hail Mary.
Yes.
It is interesting, some of the ones that they chose.
Oh, it's extremely interesting.
And some of the ones that they omitted.
Extremely.
If we go just at our home track, if we just talk Talladega Superspeedway, the first one that comes to mind for me is the first ever win for Brad Keselowski when he was driving the 09 car. And that was the race that wasn't necessarily exciting because Brad Keselowski claimed his first win. That was the race where Carl Edwards had his 99 car punted up into the catch fence, and it comes to land, a football field away from the start-finish line, and he jumps out of his car and pulls a Ricky Bobby and runs across the start-finish line.
Yes. Yeah.
That may not be the most exciting Talladega race, but it certainly is one of the first ones that comes to my mind when it comes to exciting races at Talladega. It's not even in the top 75.
It is.
Oh, is it there?
It's there.
Okay.
Ranked 54th.
Really? 54th. There are 54 more exciting races than that one? 54.
Out of the top 75. How many out of 75 races, greatest races, how many do you think Talladega has in there total?
We were guessing at that during the break. Producer John said 5. I said less.
No, that was top 40.
That was top 20.
Was that top
Oh,
20?
top 20.
Oh, okay.
Top 20.
Okay. Out of top 20, John's you guessed 5.
Yeah.
I said less than that. And you pointed at me and said I was right. And then you guessed 2?
Yeah.
And it was less than that. That's in the top 20. What was the one at Talladega that made the top 20?
The one in the top 20 that made it was July the 29th, 1984, when Dale Earnhardt passed race leader Terry Labonte on the high side on the final lap to grab the checkered flag. The race features an insane
Their words, not ours.
68 lead changes.
It's funny. I seem to remember us calling a race where there were
88
88.
and 87, respectively, back to
Yeah.
back.
Talk about insane.
Top 75. How many races at Talladega? I'm going to say 4 max.
I might be willing to go above that, but not by much.
5.
Here's my guess for number 1. It's one of 2 races. It's either going to be the year that Dale Earnhardt finally won the Daytona 500, or the most obvious choice, which is the 1979 Daytona 500, the one that first time ever live flag-to-flag coverage, because the East Coast was socked in with a blizzard, and it wrapped up with the famous fight between Cale Yarborough and the Allisons.
Well, if you base it in chronological order, they've got that one ranked 40th. Chronological order in years. The one setting number 1 is Detroit, August 12th, 1951.
That'd be the Michigan race, the first ever
As far as
that they have.
As part of the 250th anniversary celebration of the city of Detroit, NASCAR runs a 250-mile event at the Michigan State Fairgrounds, won by Tommy Thompson, the only victory of his Cup career. Now, anybody want to see a little bias at Daytona? through the top 75 Daytona has, and I count 1, 2, 3,
A little bit here.
4,
Can we count that high?
5,
He's taking off his shoes.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's in the top 20.
They got more than half in the top 20.
12.
And I'm not going to do this specifically to anger fans of the Classic number 3. But NASCAR is going to do a whole lot of Daytona races, and they're going to do a whole lot of Dale Earnhardt wins, Dale Earnhardt Sr. wins, and they'll probably do a fair number of Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins as well because they're playing to the red meat. They're playing to the base. Plain and simple. They're playing to the base.
20, 21.
It just keeps going.
21 out of 75 at Daytona.
Whew.
That's almost a third.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at it, let's see, 1, 2.
We're not saying this site is perfect, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you that right now. But hey, if you're looking for classic races.
Now, didn't we say that it's not just 75 races? There are other races
Oh, no.
you can watch.
Oh, there's a ton
It's
of
just
them.
when
Yeah.
you go to classics.nascar.com, like you see there on CRN Live on YouTube, if you go there, it's going to take you to a homepage, and that's where those 75 races that he's talking about are listed. And then you can go up there. There's drop-down menus up top where you can go by year or you can go by track. So if you are a fan of one in particular track, you can watch every single race that they have film for or archives for that were run on that track. If you want to see every single race that they have that was run at Talladega, you can. If you want to do Darlington, you can do that. If you want to do Daytona, if you want to do Martinsville, every race that they've got film on, you can actually watch every single race that you want to. You
That's
can
the
overload.
caveat.
Yeah, you can overload on it. So, but yeah, the homepage, that's dealing with their idea of the top 75 races of all time.
Homestead, Miami is tied with Talladega on this list.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
So we talked about the fact that
Close that page out before I anger myself any further.
Trackhouse Racing has already said that right now nobody's selling charters, but even if they were, they're selling at a ridiculous price.
Stupid price.
And Richard Childress Racing looks like they're talking about saving Austin Hill for coming up and bringing him into a third car at some point in time.
Right.
Chi-Town Mark on CRN Live on YouTube asked, does NASCAR need to provide more charters? Well, there are 36 of them out there right now. And the most cars you can start in any Cup Series race is 40.
Yeah, you've got 40. That's why you don't see people running many open cars in races, because open cars don't pay as much money as the charter cars.
So the question becomes, does it make sense to offer 40 charters, or does it make more sense to at least have a handful, in this case 4 positions open for non-chartered cars to be able to try and qualify in?
It makes sense to me to go back to 43 cars. 40 charters, 3 open.
The interest is certainly there again. We've talked about that with the increase in the number of teams that have come in recently, and the fact that Junior Motorsports is still sitting over there going, well, we're thinking about getting into Cup. We keep thinking about it. We keep thinking about it. Does it make financial sense? We're not sure. Maybe, maybe not. We keep thinking about it. So with Junior Motorsports talking about it, Trackhouse is in. Live Fast has already come in. Trackhouse is thinking about going to 3 cars.
Junior Motorsports is Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt is using that as leverage. You cannot tell me, nobody in this room or nobody watching us via YouTube or listening to us on these very airwaves can tell me that Dale Earnhardt Jr. could not drop the $30 million at the drop of a finger
And
and
get the
have a
sponsorship
charter,
for it.
if not 2.
But again, let's go back to it. Trackhouse Racing is already talking about going to a 3rd car because they are about ready to sign SVG. I think that's all but done.
Yeah.
Roush Fenway Keselowski, Brad Keselowski, has talked about the fact he'd like to go to a 3rd car.
They're effectively going to be a 4-car team when Rick Ware moves in the building next year.
I get that, but still, he's talked about the expansion.
Sure.
Trackhouse doing it, RFK talking about it, RCR probably starting to look at it because of the signing of Austin Hill.
Yeah.
And Junior Motorsports is out there. Yeah, I think at this point in time, you might actually be able to look at it and see that it might actually be a viable option for you to go back to a 43-car starting grid, expand out the charters to 40.
Mm-hmm.
You could sell them at market rates, which go back to the last charter that sold,
mm-hmm.
and figure out whatever that, and I don't know, so I'm saying this. Let's say the last charter sold for $15 million.
Right.
NASCAR sells the 4 additional charters for $15 million.
Yeah.
First come, first served. You bring us $15 million, you get a charter. If you happen to bring us $60 million, we'll sell you all 4. Junior Motorsports. That's how you do it. I think the interest is there. The question is will it actually happen? And I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Speaking of expanding out the season, we just talked about it. 3 seasons of the SRX series is now done. Most fans of this particular series have been calling for longer seasons. I mean, let's face it, 6 races, especially when you do it in 6 weeks, goes that fast. And the series was always meant to be short because it's an all-star series that features former and current drivers from major series like NASCAR, Indycar, NHRA. Been some thought of trying to attract Formula One or even Formula E talent, but that has really yet to come to effect in the car. Well, one of the co-founders of it is Tony Stewart, along with Ray Evernham. Stewart talked to AutoWeek magazine this week about the future of the series that he co-founded, said he would like to expand the series out. Noted that there are some staffing shortages that would need to be filled in. There's some money concerns at the same time, but they are getting more and more interest. If you look at what happened in this 3rd season, number one, they did what some people kind of argued was maybe a good move, maybe not. The first 2 years, they got on CBS on Saturday night in prime time, and it was great. The problem was it did kind of limit who you could bring over, depending on geography and things like that. Because if a Cup Series driver wanted to run SRX and they maybe were out on the West Coast, it was really hard to come to the East Coast because the vast majority of the races that SRX has run in their short history have been east of the Mississippi. So was it feasible for them to travel from, say, Sonoma all the way over to be able to come and race an SRX? And that's just an example. I'm not saying that that's what actually happened. Mm-hmm. Now they get a deal with ESPN. They revive Thursday Night Thunder. By the way, fantastic job by ESPN on the opening.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Ooh, if you had not seen the opening, you need to go back and you need to find the opening for it because they went back to the original days of Thursday Night Thunder and brought back the voices that went along with it. That's your tease. Go back and check it out. So going to Thursday night suddenly allowed Kyle Busch to run, Brad Keselowski to run, Joey Logano ran a race. You see where I'm going with this? You had a lot more drivers that were full-time in current NASCAR and IndyCar able to come and participate on a regular basis instead of having to worry about, oh my gosh, I got travel concerns. I got to get to my actual race for IndyCar or NASCAR. So it was a fantastic move, really, in the end. Tony Stewart said this, quote, "When it comes to what I envision short term, I think expansion would look like a 20 to 24 car field each week." On those short tracks?
And they're running how many currently?
12. This past year, 12. So he's talking about up to doubling the number of entries.
Significant uptake.
18.
He also added, I would definitely be interested in an 8 to 10 week schedule. So at least 2, maybe 4 more weeks added to this. Okay. I don't think ESPN would have a problem with that. You're in a point in their broadcast year where all they really have right now is Major League Baseball and the WNBA.
Yep.
Woohoo! Smoke added there actually could be 2 seasons, maybe a shift into winter months, noting, quote, we have a little bit of interest from overseas and bringing the SRX series over there. And added in the winter when everybody's got downtime, we could go somewhere nice and warm, in other words, the southern hemisphere, and have a lot of fun doing the same show that we do here in the United States. Of course, that could be where you might get some interest from Formula One and Formula E drivers to be able to come in as well. He thinks a 10 race in 10-week schedule might be able to work there as well. That might be a little optimistic, with all due respect, because if you're trying to keep some NASCAR and IndyCar drivers there,
Yeah.
10 weeks might be a little bit too much of a commitment for them to be able to compete the whole time.
5 weeks, off week, 5 weeks.
We'll find out. Time will tell. But so far, it's been a really neat experience, and I've enjoyed watching the racing. I don't know about you. We'll talk straight line stuff and the countdown to the championship next.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show here. One little bit of NHRA news. Following last weekend's event in Topeka, Kansas, Heartland Motorsports Park, several drivers have now actually officially clinched their countdown to the championship spots. Now, there can be, I should say, exceptions. But for the most part, it's the top 10 points finishers from Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Motorcycle who all make it in and battle for that particular division's title. Those who are clinched from Top Fuel are Justin Ashley and Steve Torrance. There are 3 from Funny Car: Matt Hagan, Ron Capps, Robert Height. You got Dallas Glenn, who's the Pro Stock car points leader. He's locked in. And then there's 1 from Pro Stock Motorcycle, and it's Gage Herrera, who, well, he's been pretty much locked in from the, I don't know, first race of the year, it seems.
Pretty much.
I just checked out the points. At this point in time, Gage Herrera leads second place by 359 points.
Ball game.
At least for the regular season. If Gage Herrera is not, I don't know if he's eligible for it. I know it's his first year in Pro Stock Motorcycle. But is he eligible for NHRA Rookie of the Year? I'm not sure that he is. I think he's run some lower divisions.
I don't know.
If he's eligible for Rookie of the Year and doesn't win it, somebody talk about filling him or stuffing a ballot box. Good grief. To IndyCar racing here, where Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing has made a late season switch of drivers. This is weird. With 3 races left to go, they fired Jack Harvey Tuesday, announced they have got Connor Daly to drive the number 30 car at the Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway. As to who might be behind the wheel for the final 2 races of the year, we don't know. Portland WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, the team says they'll make that decision soon. Why make the decision now? Well, Harvey was signed to the team for the 2022 season, but in the almost 2 years of running for the organization, he hasn't so much as claimed a top 10, much less a win. His best finish this season was 13th place at Long Beach. That was the second race of this year. So I guess the move doesn't seem as big of a surprise anymore, does it? Posted on social media, Harvey did, quote, "It was no secret that my time at Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing didn't go as planned. It wasn't through lack of effort. I leave confident that I put everything into every moment as a member of the team. Only time will tell what the future holds. I'm more motivated than ever to find a new home in IndyCar to showcase what I'm capable of doing behind the wheel of a race car. We're not defined by our failures, but rather how we respond to them. This is just one chapter in my story, and I look forward to writing the next." Well, here's the thing. Connor Daly knows exactly how Jack Harvey feels, because Daly started the year as a full-time driver over at Ed Carpenter Racing. He even claimed a top 10 in the Indy 500. But the next weekend after the Detroit race, he was gone. He's filled in at Meyer Shank Racing for Simon Pagenaud, but he's seeking another full-time ride himself. Team co-owner Bobby Rahal said of this move, quote, "We will use the final 3 races of the season to gauge other racing talent. I'm very pleased that Connor has agreed to join us. He's been strong there, and I feel he can bring value to the team while also providing us with a strong effort. I look forward to having him with us." But he made no mention of Portland. He made no mention of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
Yeah, that was a eyebrow raiser, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it was indeed. Well, I buried the lead in IndyCar, because really the bigger story is probably this whole Alex Palou drama. Last year about this time, we were talking about the drama between Alex Palou and Chip Ganassi Racing, because Chip Ganassi and Alex Palou were ready to take each other to court over whether or not he was going to continue on or be able to move to McLaren for the 2023 season. Just after the regular season ended in 2022, they came to terms, figured out an agreement that would allow him to run for Chip Ganassi Racing this year and then move to McLaren next year, right? Wrong! Apparently, he wants to stay with Chip Ganassi Racing now. Okay. Here's the saga. Again, Palou notably signed with Aero McLaren midway through 2022, caused a problem with Chip Ganassi, planned to hold him to his contract, supposed to run through the season. Eventually, it got all ironed out. He's not only running for CGR, but he's leading the points with 3 races to go. And for pretty much myself and Matt, he's your champion in waiting. Well, now Aero McLaren thinks he's not going to be racing for them in 2024 as initially planned. Team boss Zach Brown sent a letter to McLaren Racing employees. A copy of it got a hold of by the Associated Press. The letter claims that Palou never had any, quote, intention of honoring his contract, unquote, with McLaren for 2024. Brown insists Palou has assured him on numerous occasions he would indeed join McLaren next year, but because of the letter and the aftermath, Brown now states that the organization, quote, paid him, Palou, a significant first payment toward his 2024 season, in addition to the millions of dollars towards developing him in our Formula One testing program and in his reserve driver role, with a potential drive in F1 in the future. Unfortunately, it now appears that our belief commitment, investment, and trust in Alex was misplaced, as it is not being reciprocated. Brown said the team will look to settle their 2024 driver lineup as soon as possible. This year, they have 3 full-time rides. They're piloted by Pato O'Ward, Felix Rosenquist, and Alexander Rossi. But we go back to the initial question. Why is Brown thinking Pallou's not going to be there next year? Well, Racer.com reported last weekend that Palou would actually like to stay with Ganassi now, considering how well they're performing. Again, he's up 101 points over Scott Dixon with 3 races to go. The apparent attempt to remain at Ganassi has caused Pallou's team, Monaco Increase Management, to part ways with Palou. Yeesh. All the dominoes are falling. The company released a statement, said that they are, quote, bitterly disappointed to learn about Alex Palou's decision to break an existing agreement with McLaren for 2024 and beyond. Together, we built a relationship that we thought went beyond any contractual obligation and culminated in winning the 2021 IndyCar crown and tracing a path to F1 opportunities. Life goes on. We wish Alex all the best in his future achievements, unquote. Palou has yet to comment.
Seems like to me that he's staying. Seems like.
Sure.
Because now, here's how I'm going to word
We're
this.
going to try and unravel this one, huh?
If I've got contract offers from two teams, one's team, and I'm driving for Steve's team, but I got John coming in over here. He's offering me a shot to go to F1 plus, say, I don't know, $5 million bonus.
Could be. Maybe more.
If I'm driving in a car currently right now and I'm absolutely decimating, and we're going to use that term, I'm absolutely decimating the team that I'm being offered to come to, but yet I know when I'm going to win the championship, I'm going to have the bonus money to offset what the bonus money they're offering. I'm going to stay in the faster car.
So you're going to tell
considerably faster car.
So you're going to tell John and his team thanks, but no thanks?
Yeah, because Chip's probably. Sorry. But Chip probably will compensate him well to offset whatever McLaren and Brown offered him.
Yeah, I get it. But if you've got 2 signed contracts, I mean, with reports basically stating, there are some reports out there. I don't know how viable they are. But there are some reports out there that Palou, again, already signed a contract with the agreement that he joins that team in 2024. Other reports have him having signed already an extension to stay with Chip Ganassi Racing.
I don't know, man. I mean, with McLaren's resurgence, not a resurgence, but they're surging
Sure.
in F1, why are you going to even consider thinking about? We know you're not taking Lando Norris out of the seat.
No.
When Oscar Piastri is gaining week by week, why would you even think about taking him out of the seat? Because you know Alex Palou's not going to give his seat up to go be a reserve F1 driver.
No.
You're not doing that. Not when you're basically you're mixing, baking, and eating your cake at the same time. And just having a field day with everybody else. I'm going to stay in IndyCar where I can keep having dessert when I want it.
There you go. All right. Palou, meanwhile, does have the chance to be named the 2023 IndyCar champion at next week's race. Again, they're going to be at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway next weekend. If Palou comes out of there claiming another 8 points up on Scott Dixon, that means he will leave Gateway 109 points over either Dixon or Newgarden, for that matter, in second place. Mathematically, he can't be caught, so he automatically becomes the 2023 champion, adding to that title from 2021. Not the worst position to be in. But here's the caveat. He's 101 points over Scott Dixon. He's 104 points over Joseph Newgarden. Again, Joseph Newgarden comes into that race having swept every oval race so far this year. If Newgarden wins, and it's an if, I'll admit it, but if Newgarden wins at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway, it's going to be difficult for him to be 109 points over Newgarden. Because I don't think mathematically he actually can if Newgarden wins.
Yeah.
So a lot of that has to do with, and Dixon's not exactly shabby at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway either, just saying. Back to the soap opera, I guess, here. Because on yesterday, as we go to air live, McLaren announced they're beginning the process of, suing Palou. Who didn't see that coming? The case is actually, though, being filed in the United Kingdom, not the United States. I'm sure there's a reason for that I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on the radio, so I'm not even going to try and get into. The suit, according to the report on Racer.com, only names Palou. It actually does not mention Chip Ganassi Racing. That's an interesting aspect of it as well. The report adds that despite the suit, McLaren is not actually trying to seek to hold Palou to his contract. They're going to look for another driver to take over the seat of the number 6 that Palou would have joined in 2024 and driven. While not confirmed at this point, Palou is, again, thought to have signed a multi-year deal or multi-year extension to his deal to stay with Chip Ganassi and the 10 car in the next few years. Felix Rosenqvist is in there, but Rosenqvist has a problem. He's got a built-in sponsor, and Rosenqvist wants the team to find a sponsor as opposed to the driver providing the sponsor. I don't know whether that's going to happen. Rosenqvist may or may not be out next year of that car. The other two drivers, Pato O'Ward and Alex Rossi, they're fine. Felix Rosenqvist is the question. He might stick around for another year based upon all this. Then again, they might come across somebody else who might just fall in their lap.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll keep you updated.
Yeah.
That's why you listen to the show. We keep you updated on stuff like this.
Yeah.
To better news, Scott Dixon, with his win last week on the Indy Road Course, marked the continuation of not just one but two streaks for the man now being called IndyCar's Iron Man. There's a reason for that. Dixon rallied from an early spin in the grass. He got the win. That marked his 19th straight year that Dixon claims at least one win, and that extends his own IndyCar Series record streak of number of years to claim at least one win. But by even making the start, Dixon set another all-time IndyCar mark, claiming his 319th consecutive start. That gives Dixon the all-time mark. He just passed one of the series' favorite recent drivers, Tony Kanaan, for that particular number. You think about these cars. You think about what happened, for example, to Simon Pagenaud just a few weeks ago at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and how relatively easy it is for something like that to happen.
Yeah.
And Scott Dixon's got 319 consecutive starts and counting.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yep.
Dixon was also involved in a test going on this week down in Sebring, Florida. He was joined by defending series champion Will Power. The pair shared their first full test for the new for 2024 hybrid system the series is set to begin using next year. Dixon ran for Honda while Power was in his Chevy engine ride. Using the 8-turn, 1.7-mile-long Sebring course, they turned about 1,400 miles between the two of them, testing the reliability and the performance of the hybrid system that'll be connected to the carryover twin-turbo 2.2-liter V6 engine that both Chevrolet and Honda use. There are more tests planned through the fall and into the winter using different drivers and different teams, but the system, they state, should add about 150 horsepower to the existing engines. Now, here's the thing. This is what we don't know, because at this point in time, there are two different thoughts. The hybrid system might be used in place of the existing push-to-pass system, which adds a little bit less horsepower than the hybrid system, or they say they might add the hybrid system to the entirety of the existing system, including push-to-pass, and create even more horsepower. If they did that, that would get IndyCar closer to the almost 1,000 horsepower that Formula One currently boasts.
Do it.
As it is, you just add 150 horsepower to the current run, which is generally thought to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 650 to 750 horsepower, and records start to fall next year when they go to Indianapolis and start to qualify.
I want to see somebody hit 250 going into turn 3.
And I want to see him at Talladega.
Yes.
Talked about Helio Castroneves last week, set to retire at the end of the year. There's a little more information coming up. Plus, Colton Herta made an announcement and a car reveal. We'll talk about that in Formula One right after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, sprint to the finish of this weekend's edition of the show. I'm Steve West, along with Matt Nicholson. Producer John Myers noted on the show last week, Helio Castroneves announced that he was going to step away from full-time IndyCar racing at the end of this year. But we also noted this. He said he's not done racing at all. He is set to move into an ownership role with Meyer Shank Racing. I have to admit, I would have thought that would have been with his team that he created so much success with over the years. But for Meyer Shank Racing, this is fantastic news.
Oh, yeah. Very big.
Last weekend in Indianapolis, he said, quote, "My first thing now is asking when is the series owners meeting because I want to start asking questions." He was laughing when he said that. He turned a bit more serious after that, said, "I want to be very clear. I'm not retiring, okay? I just want to make sure that people understand that. Actually, my schedule's open to do other series. And I do find it interesting, the list and exactly the order that he put this list in. He said, quote, I can do SRX.
Check.
He announced that one first. I can do SRX. I can do IMSA. I can do NASCAR. I can do stock cars in Brazil. Whatever. Obviously, the main focus is IndyCar in my role with different hats and also trying to win Indy. Still have a lot of fire inside me, a lot of energy that I want to burn. A great thing is the experience that I bring and built all these years. What he knows right now is that in his role as team owner, he's going to act a lot like Jimmy Johnson at Legacy MC. He will pick and choose whatever races he wants to go and run in. He already knows next year he's going to get in a third Meyer-Shank Racing car and go for the Indy 500, where he will try for his record-breaking 5th win in the Indy 500 in the 2024 race. And you know what? Wouldn't terribly shock me.
Nope.
Would not terribly shock me.
Not at all.
Colton Herta, we got a picture of this. If we can get that picture up there on CRN Live on YouTube, we'll try and get that for you here momentarily. Colton Herta, honored to be able to carry on and carry the colors that his father drove to his very first win. And he will race the car on the 25th anniversary of that win. Herta's ride, which you will be able to see on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of Andretti Autosport, shows the similarity between the two cars. Now, the sponsors aren't exactly the same. Colton's primary sponsor is Gainbridge. But Gainbridge was willing to work and allowed for as close a recreation of the logos as would allow to his dad's old Shell sponsorship. Brian Herta raced to that win in 1998 in what we now call WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So this race, where those two cars you see right there,
They look almost identical.
they do. The car on the left was the winner in 1998. The car on the right will attempt to win on the same track, on the same day, 25 years later.
And I think he's got a good shot.
I think he does too. I mean, Colton's really, really good on road courses. Seems to have that down. It's, you set up that car right, you're going to be good to go. That's a good looking car right there.
Yep.
Congratulations to them. Hope he does really, really well. Wouldn't mind seeing that win. Be a cool story.
Yep.
To Formula One, where they're still in their August break or summer break, whatever you want to call it. Not a whole lot of news coming out as far as the drivers are concerned, but racetracks, there is quite a bit of news. Since the first race of the 10-year deal between the promoters at Miami Grand Prix and Formula One, there actually has been talk about moving the race to a night event. They can put that to rest at least for 2024. Back in May, the CEO of the race promotions group noted that they could shift the race from daytime in the United States to a nighttime event, following the example, say, of the upcoming Vegas Grand Prix. Miami Grand Prix President Tyler Epp has been mostly silent about it, but this week he said, quote, we've looked at this a little bit. Singapore was very helpful in terms of sharing how they do it. We've obviously held discussions with Vegas. There could be some opportunities to work together there. I would tell you it's very, very unlikely for the 2024 version, but we'll always look at opportunities to improve the experience if we deem as a group, and frankly with the FIA and Formula One as well, saying that it does make sense to look at, say, Saturday night or Sunday night or whatever it might be, that we look at it. But for 2024, it's not on the docket. Remember, this is a May race. Moving to an evening race might make it a little bit cooler for the fans that are in attendance in South Florida in May. But Epp noted that Formula One's broadcasting strategy will also come into play, said that there could be a benefit for the majority of Formula One fans who, let's face it, they're in Europe. So here in the U.S., a shift to evening or at least an after sunset start might actually have them moving the race off of Sunday to a Saturday evening race here in the U.S. just to make it work. Because if you do a Sunday night race here in the United States, that's an overnight race in Britain. I don't think Formula One or the FIA would be all that keen on having an overnight race in Europe.
I mean, look what they're doing here with Las Vegas this year.
Yeah, it's a 10 o'clock start,
In
Las Vegas time in November.
Which
Why?
is-
So that it can be during the daytime, technically morning, in Europe on Sunday.
Which is midnight here.
It's where the fans are, boys and girls.
Hanks or
It's why certain, for example, be it college or the NFL, it's why the networks consistently put certain teams on television week in and week out. They grab the ratings. Europe is the ratings driver when it comes to television in Formula One. That's why we have a 10 p.m. local time start for Formula One in Las Vegas coming up. That's why they're going to have to be very careful about moving this race to an after dark race here in the United States.
Just want to say thank you to F1 for causing me to have to stay up and watch this race at midnight, because I'm going to stay up. I'm going to watch it. I want to see it.
Yeah, I do. I want to see it too. It'll be that's Thanksgiving weekend here in the United States. Doesn't mean anything overseas.
So
for us, it's Thanksgiving weekend.
Week before.
Is it the week before?
Week
Okay.
before.
So what I'm probably going to do is I'll probably go take a nap on Saturday and set my alarm. Wake up.
Yeah, because
Watch the race.
I'm not paying $1,000 plus just for a general admission ticket.
No, sorry,
To go.
not happening. And I get it. The market will bear it because that's what the tickets are set at. That's what it was down in Miami. And they sold out. They had, 200 to 300,000 people walk through the turnstiles earlier this year?
Yeah.
People are paying for the money. People are spending that kind of money for those tickets. As long as they spend the money for the tickets, they'll charge it. As to Texas, which is now actually the oldest of the 3 United States-based races this year, they don't have any plans to change any practices leading to pre-race or post-race ceremonies. Despite all the hype, the glitz, the glamour that surround both Miami and Vegas at this time, Texas gonna be Texas. I don't blame them. They got no reason to change either. The 2022 U.S. Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas was the most attended race of Formula One last year. Over the 3 days that the series ran there, 400,000 people walked in. The track's hoping they can be the first in Formula One to top 500,000 people for a weekend. This is the track that in 2016, before she got stupid big, had Taylor Swift doing a concert. They've grabbed Queen for this year. Just saying.
Please, just for giggles, just for absolute giggles, Christian Horner, let Verstappen just have a couple of junk races, claim the title at Coda, where you have a reason for Queen to play. We are the champions.
There you go. Makes sense. When Formula One finally does get back to racing, which is technically next weekend, they're going to head to Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix. Security's being stepped up. The intent is to try to make the fan experience a little bit more enjoyable, mostly by cutting down on the use of the flares by fans of Red Bull and Danish native Max Verstappen. The orange smoke flares became a big problem at the Austrian Grand Prix earlier this year. It actually caused several fans to complain, and others actually decided to take matters into their own hands and started fighting the Red Bull fans because they were, smoking them out.
Ooh.
Zandvoort officials have gone so far as to, despite the fact, again, that Max Verstappen is a native of the country, banning the orange smoke flares this year. Officials said that while it looked great on television, it now could actually be a health issue. They certainly don't want to see any violence among the fans breaking out in the stands, and note that it actually could, depending on which way the winds are blowing that day, cause vision problems for the drivers.
Good. I can see that.
I mean, I'll admit, yeah, it does. It looks great on television. But I'm sorry, you set off that flare right next to me and that wind is blowing in the wrong direction. You and me are going round and round, boys and girls.
Yeah, somebody's getting decked.
That ain't working next to me, man.
No.
Let's get ready to rumble! Now we owe a lot of money. Retired Formula One racer Felipe Massa simply cannot let go of 2008. His legal challenge regarding the final standings is set to continue. The Brazilian native's legal team calling it a conspiracy. Their words, not mine. That kept him from winning the title in 2008, and they want compensation. Okay. Here's the story. Former F1 head Bernie Ecclestone made a comment earlier this year that got Massa a little bit hot under the collar. Ecclestone got to talking and suggested that both F1 race stewards and the FIA were aware of Nelson Piquet Jr.'s intent when he crashed out of the Singapore Grand Prix that year. What happened is that a safety car came out, and all those events allowed, number one, Fernando Alonso not only to win the race, but it also kept Felipe Massa pinned outside of the top 10 or outside of the points when the race ended. And at the end of the year, the gentleman that we now know as Sir Lewis Hamilton claimed the Formula One season title by one single point. Enyo Law in Brazil is currently representing Massa. They sent a letter to the FIA, which was quoted by the Reuters news agency. They quoted as saying, in part, that Massa was, quote, the victim of a conspiracy committed by individuals at the highest levels of Formula One, together with the FIA and Formula One management. Simply put, Mr. Massa is the rightful 2008 Drivers' Champion, and F1 and the FIA deliberately ignored the misconduct that cheated him out of that title. Mr. Massa is unable to fully quantify his losses at this stage, but estimates that they're likely to exceed tens of millions of euros. This amount does not cover the serious moral and reputational losses suffered by Mr. Massa. This letter is what they call a letter before claim. It's been sent to Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali and FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem. It's a legal requirement before you could begin any court proceeding, apparently, in Europe. Again, I'm not a lawyer and don't play one on the radio or on YouTube. The letter adds that there is, right now, no response that is amenable to Massa. And if there isn't one within the specific period of time that they have, the letter's dated August 15th, it seeks a response in a 2-week period, so in other words, before August 29th, that Massa then plans to, quote, pursue legal action in order to seek compensation for the harm he has suffered. As of now, we have not gotten any comment from either Formula One or the FIA.
And I doubt we'll see any.
No. If we get an
Probably
official
not.
comment, it will be something along the lines of, we can't comment on existing litigation. So here's the question. Short answer. Sour grapes on the part of Massa?
Yep.
Does he have a case?
Nope.
All right. Court's adjourned. One more note here as we turn our attention to Formula E here, where the McLaren racing team has announced that they and driver Rene Rast have parted ways. The team released a statement in part that said, quote, Rene has taken the difficult decision to pursue other opportunities. The team fully supports this decision. We can't thank him enough for everything he's done for the team over the past year. The team says they're working to settle the driver lineup for the upcoming 10th season. This was as of last weekend. Rast claimed McLaren's only Formula E podium finish of the year. That was back at Saudi Arabia, finished 13th in the final standings. Well, as the week went on, McLaren figured, why don't we keep Jake Hughes for a while longer? So they announced 2 days after Rast's departure that they extended their deal with Hughes, who proved himself worthy of the seat. He was the primary reserve driver for the McLaren Formula E team for 2 seasons leading up to the one just ended. He did begin the race year in Mexico City by qualifying third. He did claim a podium finish in the second race of the year, then claimed the pole for Monaco. While not announced as a single-year deal, if you read the statement about the extension only mentions the upcoming 10th season for Formula E, so it appears to be a one-year deal only. The team, I guess, wants him to improve and get more podium finishes and maybe battle for a win before they go more years.
We'll see.
McLaren, IndyCar. We actually didn't talk about him in Formula One. We did talk about him in NASCAR, but that was good news. And now we talk about him in Formula E. Wow, it's been a McLaren kind of weekend. We'll see what happens next weekend.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Thank you very much. Overseas, in the United States, right here in our own backyard. Whether you're listening on the radio or whatever, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
A presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG.